My husband Michael looked me dead in the eyes last night while I was loading the dishwasher after getting our kids fed, and my mom settled in her room and said I'm done living like a guest in my own house. If you really loved me, you'd stop prioritizing everyone else over me. I actually stopped mid-motion with a plate in my hand and just stared at him. Because what the hell kind of thing is that to say to your wife who's been running herself into the ground for the past 3 months, taking care of everyone including him? My mom Anne has stage 4 cancer. Stage 4. She's 67 years old, and the doctors gave her maybe 6 months back in October, and she didn't want to die in some facility, so I brought her to live with us. Our house. The house Michael and I bought together 5 years ago, where we're raising our 2 kids, Ava, who's 8, and Carlos, who's 6. For 3 months, I've been doing everything. Waking up at 5 a.m. to help my mom with her morning routine before the kids wake up. Getting Ava and Carlos ready for school. Making breakfast for everyone. Taking my mom to her appointments twice a week. Managing her medications, which is like a full-time job by itself because there's so many and they have to be timed perfectly. Picking the kids up from school. Making dinner. Helping with homework. Getting my mom settled for bed. Doing laundry and cleaning and grocery shopping, and all of it while also working part-time from home as a medical transcriptionist. And Michael works a normal 9 to 5 as an accountant and comes home and acts like he's doing me a favor by existing in the same house. So when he said that to me, I asked him what exactly he means by living like a guest, because from where I'm standing, he's living like a king with a wife who does literally everything. He said, that's exactly the problem. I do everything for everyone except him. I put the plate down and asked him to explain what he needs from me that he's not getting. He started going on about how we haven't had a date night in months, and when we do talk, it's just me complaining about being overwhelmed. I told him I'm overwhelmed because I am. I'm caring for a dying woman who happens to be my mother, while also raising our kids and keeping our household running. He said he understands it's hard, but he didn't sign up to have his mother-in-law living with them indefinitely. I reminded him she's not living here indefinitely. She's dying here, and it's only been 3 months. He said 3 months feels like 3 years when your wife barely looks at you anymore. I actually laughed. Not a happy laugh. One of those laughs where you're so tired and so done that you don't even know what else to do. I asked him if he's seriously jealous of my dying mother and our young children who need their mom. He said he's not jealous. He's just lonely in his own marriage. Michael tried to grab my hands, and I pulled away because I was elbow deep in dishwater, and also because I was angry. He said we need to talk about this seriously, and I said fine, let's talk. He said maybe we should look into getting my mom into a nursing home or hospice care because this situation isn't sustainable for our marriage. I told him my mom has maybe 3 or 4 months left if we're lucky, and she specifically asked to die at home surrounded by family, not in some sterile facility. He said he's sorry about my mom, but our marriage has to come first. I asked him what marriage exactly, because from where I'm standing, I'm the only one in it who's actually doing anything. He got defensive and said he works full-time and pays most of the bills. I reminded him I work too and do everything else around here. He said his job is demanding, and when he comes home, he needs his wife, not a stressed-out caregiver who barely acknowledges him. That's when I really lost it. Told him I barely acknowledge him because I'm exhausted from keeping 3 people alive and 2 children functioning while he sits on the couch watching sports and complaining that I'm not giving him enough attention. He said that's not fair and I'm making him sound like a villain when he's just trying to save our marriage. I asked him how exactly abandoning my dying mother would save our marriage. He said it's not abandoning, it's setting boundaries. I told him the boundary is that my mom is staying here until she passes, and if he can't handle that, then he can leave. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. Said so, that's really where we are. I'm just supposed to either deal with it or get out. I said yes, that's exactly where we are because my mother is dying, and I will not spend whatever time she has left fighting with my husband about whether she deserves to be here. Michael walked out of the kitchen and I heard him go upstairs. 15 minutes later, he came back down with a pillow and some blankets and said he's sleeping in the guest room until I come to my senses. I told him fine, sleep wherever he wants, I've got more important things to worry about. That was Tuesday. It's now Sunday and he's still in the guest room, but it gets so much worse. Wednesday morning, I woke up to get my mom ready, and Michael was already gone. He usually leaves for work around 7:30, but it was 6 a.m. and his car wasn't in the driveway. He didn't text me where he was going, didn't call, just disappeared. He came home that night around 9 p.m., which is late for him. I was in the living room with my mom watching TV after getting the kids to bed, and he walked right past us without saying hello. Went straight upstairs to the guest room and closed the door. Thursday, I tried to talk to him, asked if we could sit down and discuss this like adults. He said there's nothing to discuss until I'm ready to admit I'm wrong. I asked what exactly I'm wrong about, and he said prioritizing everyone over him. I told him that's not what's happening, I'm just trying to keep my family together during an impossible time. He said if I was really trying to keep the family together, I'd put our marriage first. I asked how, and he said by finding alternative care for my mom so we can get back to normal. I said this is normal now for however long my mom has left, and he needs to accept that. Michael laughed. Actually laughed at me. Said I'm delusional if I think this is sustainable. That I look exhausted all the time, and I'm short with the kids, and I'm letting our marriage fall apart. I told him I look exhausted because I am exhausted, and maybe if he helped more instead of sulking in the guest room, I'd have some energy left over. He said he does help, he just took Carlos to soccer practice last weekend. I stared at him. Stared. because he took our son to one soccer practice and thinks that counts as helping while I'm doing literally everything else 24/7. I asked him if he's serious right now. He said he's dead serious and he's tired of being made to feel guilty for having needs. I asked what needs specifically. He said emotional needs, physical needs, the need to feel like he matters to his wife. I told him he does matter, but right now my priority has to be my mom because she's dying and our kids because they're children. He said, and what about him? I said he's a grown man who can take care of himself for a few months. He said that's not what marriage is supposed to be. Friday morning, he came downstairs while I was making breakfast and said he's been doing some thinking. My stomach dropped because nothing good ever comes from a man saying he's been thinking. He said he loves me, but he can't keep living like this, and I need to make a choice. A choice. I asked what choice, and he said choose him, or choose the situation with my mom. I actually dropped the spatula I was holding. Told him he cannot be serious right now. He said he's completely serious. Either I find other arrangements for my mom, or he's going to start making arrangements for himself. I asked if he's threatening to leave me, and he said he's not threatening anything, he's just being honest about what he needs. I told him what I need is a husband who supports me through the hardest time of my life, not one who gives ultimatums. He said he's been supporting me for 3 months, and where has it gotten him? Sleeping in the guest room and feeling like a stranger in his own home. I told him he's sleeping in the guest room because he chose to move there. He said he moved there because sharing a bed with someone who barely tolerates him anymore was too depressing. I said I don't barely tolerate him. I'm just exhausted from everything I'm doing. He said that's his point exactly. I'm so focused on everyone else that there's nothing left for him. I asked him what he wants from me specifically right now in this moment. He said he wants his wife back. The woman who used to laugh at his jokes and actually seemed happy to see him and made him feel wanted. I told him that woman is still here, she's just buried under 3 months of no sleep and constant caregiving and stress. He said then maybe it's time to let some of that go. I asked how, and he said again, find other care for my mom. I looked at him standing there in our kitchen in his work clothes about to leave for his nice quiet office, while I'm about to spend another day managing medications and doctor appointments and 2 kids, and somehow keeping the house from falling apart. And I said no, just no. My mom stays. He said I'm making a mistake, and I'll regret choosing this over our marriage. I told him I'm not choosing anything over our marriage, I'm refusing to abandon my dying mother, and if he can't understand that, then maybe we have bigger problems than where he's sleeping. He left for work without saying goodbye. Friday night, Michael came home and went straight to the guest room again. Saturday morning, I got up and found him already dressed and leaving. I asked where he's going, and he said out. Just out. He was gone all day. Didn't answer my calls or texts. Came home at 11 p.m., and I was still up because I couldn't sleep worrying about where he was. I asked where he'd been for 15 hours, and he said with friends. I asked which friends, and he said, does it matter? I said, yes, it matters. I'm your wife, and you disappeared for an entire day. He said, I've been disappearing into caregiving for 3 months, so now we're even. I told him that's not even close to the same thing, and he knows it. He said from his perspective, it is, I've been checked out of our marriage since my mom moved in. I asked if he's checking out now too, and he said, maybe he is because what's the point of being here if I'm not really here? Sunday morning I woke up and Michael was packing a bag, not a small bag, his big suitcase. I asked what he's doing, and he said he's going to stay with his brother Vincent for a while. I asked for how long, and he said until I figure out what I want. I told him I know what I want. I want my mom to be comfortable in her final months, and I want my husband to support me through it. He said that's the problem right there. My mom and my wants and nothing about what he wants. I said, what do you want, Michael? He looked at me and said, I want you to choose me right now. Choose me over this situation. I told him it's not a situation, it's my mother. He said then I guess I have my answer. He grabbed his suitcase and walked downstairs. I followed him down and he went to the kids' rooms. Woke up Ava and Carlos to say goodbye. They were confused asking where daddy's going, and he told them he's staying with Uncle Vincent for a little bit, but he'll see them soon. Ava asked if mommy and daddy are fighting, and he said, no, sweetie, sometimes grown-ups just need space. He left. Just walked out the door with his suitcase and drove away at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning, leaving me standing there with 2 confused kids, and my mom who'd heard everything from her room asking if everything is okay. I checked his Facebook this morning and he changed his status to single. Single. We're not separated officially, we haven't talked about divorce, but he went ahead and changed his status to single like our marriage is just over. My sister Chelsea called me crying because she saw it. My friend Layla texted asking what's going on. His mom Cynthia called asking why her son is saying I chose my family over him. I've gotten messages from like 10 different people asking if we're splitting up. And Michael? He's not answering my calls, not responding to texts. I left him a voicemail saying we need to talk about this properly, and he sent back one text that said, you made your choice and I made mine. I'm sitting here on Sunday night after getting my mom her evening medications and putting the kids to bed and doing the dishes and folding laundry, and I just want to scream. My mom is dying. My kids are confused and scared. My husband walked out and is making me look like the bad guy who chose her family over her marriage. His friend Kelvin commented on his single status saying, welcome back to freedom, brother, and Michael liked it. His coworker Raymond posted something like, sometimes you gotta put yourself first, and Michael commented, thanks man, needed to hear that. He's out there acting like he's some victim who escaped a terrible situation, when the terrible situation is me taking care of my terminally ill mother while trying to keep our family functioning. Chelsea came over tonight and sat with me while I ugly cried into my coffee. She said Michael is being incredibly selfish and cruel. That any decent husband would be supporting me right now, not bailing because he's not getting enough attention. My mom heard me crying and asked if this is her fault, and I had to lie and say no, everything's fine. But nothing is fine. My husband gave me an ultimatum between him and my dying mother, and when I didn't choose him, he left, packed a bag, changed his status to single, and is now out there telling everyone I'm obsessed with being a martyr who prioritizes everyone over her husband. I don't know what to do. I can't put my mom in a facility she has weeks or maybe a couple months left and she's terrified of dying alone. But I also can't just lose my marriage because I won't abandon her. Michael won't even talk to me to work this out, he's just gone. Update. Monday morning, I was in the kitchen making Ava's lunch for school and trying to get Carlos to eat his breakfast instead of playing with his cereal when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Looked out the window and it was Michael's car. I wasn't ready to see him, hadn't slept more than 3 hours, and I definitely wasn't prepared for whatever he was about to say. He walked in using his key and the kids immediately ran to him yelling, "Daddy, Daddy." He hugged them and I just stood there with a sandwich half made watching this man who walked out on us 2 days ago act like nothing happened. He told the kids to go finish getting ready for school and they ran upstairs leaving us alone in the kitchen. I asked what he's doing here and he said he needed to talk to me before work. I told him he's had 2 days to talk and instead he changed his status to single and ignored all my calls. He said he needed space to think and now he's ready to discuss things rationally. Rationally. I asked him what's rational about abandoning your family. He said he didn't abandon anyone, he's staying 10 minutes away at Vincent's place. I told him he walked out with a suitcase and told the world we're done, so yeah, that's abandoning us. Michael sat down at the kitchen table like he lives here and said he's been doing a lot of thinking about our marriage and what went wrong. I stayed standing because I was not about to sit down and have some calm discussion, while my mom is in the next room probably hearing all this and my kids are upstairs getting ready for school. He said the problem is I've completely lost sight of what matters. That ever since my mom moved in, I've become a different person. Someone who's constantly stressed and never has time for him. Or even the kids, really. Because I'm so focused on caregiving. I asked him if he seriously just said I never have time for the kids, when I'm the one getting them ready for school every day and making their meals and helping with homework and literally everything else. He said that's not what he means quality time. That I'm physically present, but emotionally I'm somewhere else. I told him I'm emotionally exhausted from watching my mother die slowly while trying to keep everyone else functioning, and if he can't understand that, then I don't know what to tell him. Michael said that's exactly his point. Everything is about my mom now. I asked him what he expects. She's dying. Of course she's a priority right now. He said she's not just a priority, she's become my entire existence, and he's tired of coming in second or third or fourth. I asked him to explain how exactly he's coming in fourth. He started listing things. We haven't been on a date in 3 months. I don't ask about his day anymore. I barely look at him when he walks in the door. I'm always too tired to watch TV with him at night. The last time we really talked about anything other than my mom or the kids was back in November. I told him, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I don't have energy for dates when I'm barely sleeping. That maybe if he helped more instead of keeping score, I'd have something left to give him. He said he's not keeping score, he's just pointing out that our marriage has completely fallen apart. Then he said something that made me want to throw the sandwich I was holding at his face. He said he's been talking to his friends and his brother and even his mom, and they all agree that what I'm doing isn't healthy. That I'm sacrificing my marriage and my own well-being for a situation that's only going to end one way anyway. I stared at him, asked him if he really just said my mom's death is inevitable, so why bother making her comfortable? He backtracked saying that's not what he meant, but the reality is she's going to pass regardless of where she is, and at least in a facility she'd have professional care, and I could focus on my actual family. I told him she is my actual family. He said he means my immediate family, him and the kids. I said my mom is also my immediate family and she's dying, and I will not spend her final weeks or months fighting with my husband about whether she deserves to be in her daughter's home. Michael said he's not saying she doesn't deserve it, he's saying the cost is too high. I asked what cost, and he said our marriage. That if I continue down this path, we're not going to make it. I asked if that's a threat, and he said it's a reality check. Then Ava came downstairs with her backpack asking if Daddy's staying for breakfast. Michael looked at me, and I looked at him, and neither of us knew what to say. I told Ava Daddy has to get to work, but he stopped by to see her and Carlos before school. She asked when he's coming home, and he said soon, sweetie, very soon. After I dropped the kids at school, I came back and Michael was still there, sitting at the kitchen table like he was waiting for me. I asked why he's still here, and he said we're not done talking. I said I have to check on my mom, and he said your mom can wait 5 minutes. I went into my mom's room anyway. She was awake and asked if everything's okay with Michael. I lied and said we're just working through some stuff. She looked at me with these sad eyes and said she never wanted to be a burden on my marriage. I told her she's not a burden, she's my mother, and I love her, and everything's fine. Came back to the kitchen, and Michael was on his phone. I asked what else he wants to say. He put his phone down and said he wants to propose a compromise. I asked what kind of compromise, and he said he'll move back home if I agree to start looking into other care options for my mom. I told him there is no other care option that doesn't involve putting her in a facility, and she doesn't want that. He said maybe it's not about what she wants at this point. Maybe it's about what's realistic. I asked him if he hears himself right now. He said he's being practical and someone has to be because I'm too emotional to see clearly. Too emotional. I asked him if watching your mother die is a situation where you're supposed to be emotional. He said of course, but emotions can't be the only thing driving decisions that affect the whole family. I told him the decision is already made. My mom stays until she passes, and that's final. Michael stood up and said then so is his decision. He's staying at Vincent's until I'm ready to be reasonable. I asked him to define reasonable and he said putting my marriage first instead of a parent who's going to die anyway. I actually stepped toward him at that point. Told him to get out of my house if that's really how he feels. That I don't want him here if he's going to talk about my dying mother like she's an inconvenience. He said she is an inconvenience to our marriage whether I want to admit it or not. I told him to leave. He grabbed his keys and said he's leaving, but this conversation isn't over. That I need to really think about what I'm choosing here because once our marriage is destroyed, it won't come back. I said our marriage is already destroyed if this is who he is. He left and I sat on the kitchen floor and just cried. My mom called from her room asking if I'm okay, and I had to pull myself together and go take care of her morning medications like nothing happened. Tuesday, my sister Chelsea came over while the kids were at school. She brought groceries and helped me clean the kitchen, and finally I just broke down and told her everything Michael said. She was furious. Said Michael is being emotionally abusive and manipulative. That giving me an ultimatum between him and my dying mother is one of the cruelest things she's ever heard. Chelsea asked if I've talked to anyone else about this, and I said not really because I'm too embarrassed. She said embarrassed about what? I'm not the one behaving terribly. I told her everyone's gonna think I chose my mom over my husband, and she said anyone who thinks that is an idiot because there's no choosing involved. You're caring for a terminally ill parent while your husband throws a tantrum. She stayed for 3 hours helping me with laundry and meal prep and just being there. My mom was having a bad pain day and needed extra attention, and Chelsea helped with that too. When she left, she hugged me and said she's here whenever I need her and Michael can go to hell. Wednesday morning, Cynthia called me, Michael's mom. I almost didn't answer, but I figured I'd have to talk to her eventually. She started with, I know you and Michael are going through a difficult time, and I want to understand your perspective. I told her my perspective is I'm caring for my dying mother, and Michael can't handle not being the center of attention for a few months. Cynthia got quiet and then said she knows my situation is hard, but marriage is sacred and it requires sacrifice from both people. I asked her what exactly I'm not sacrificing, because from where I'm standing, I've sacrificed sleep and peace, and apparently my marriage to take care of my mom. She said she means sacrificing pride and being willing to compromise. I asked what compromise she's suggesting, and she said maybe looking into professional home care or part-time facility care for my mom so I can focus more on my family. I told her my mom is my family. Cynthia said she understands, but Michael is my husband, and that relationship has to come first. I asked her point blank if she's saying I should put my mom in a facility against her wishes so Michael feels more important. Cynthia said she's not saying that exactly, but sometimes we have to make hard choices for the good of our marriage. I told her the hard choice I'm making is watching my husband walk away because he can't be supportive during the hardest time of my life. She tried to say Michael is being supportive, he's just struggling and needs me to meet him halfway. I said halfway would be him helping more, not giving ultimatums. She said Michael works very hard and deserves to come home to a wife who makes him feel valued. I said I deserve a husband who supports me through my mother's death, but apparently that's too much to ask. Cynthia's voice got firm and she said I'm being very stubborn, and if I'm not careful I'm going to lose my husband over this. I told her if my husband leaves because I won't abandon my dying mother, then I don't want him anyway. She said I'll regret saying that, and I said maybe, but I won't regret being there for my mom when she needed me most. We hung up and I was shaking. Michael's own mother is taking his side like I'm the villain here. Thursday afternoon, I had to take my mom to an oncology appointment. Her doctor said her condition is progressing faster than expected, and we're probably looking at weeks now, not months. Weeks. I sat there in that office with my mom squeezing my hand while the doctor talked about pain management and end-of-life planning, and all I could think was Michael wants me to put her in a facility for weeks. Got home, and my friend Layla was there waiting because Chelsea had texted her that I needed support. She brought dinner for me and the kids and insisted on staying to help with the evening routine. While my mom was resting and the kids were doing homework, Layla asked me what I'm going to do about Michael. I told her I don't know. That part of me wants to fight for my marriage, but another part is so angry at him for making this about him. Layla said any marriage worth fighting for wouldn't require me to abandon my dying mother. That Michael is showing me who he really is, and I should believe him. Friday evening, Michael texted me asking if we can meet somewhere to talk. I said the kids have school and I can't leave my mom alone for long so he can come to the house. He said he doesn't want to talk at the house, too many bad memories already. I said then, I guess we're not talking. He called immediately. Said I'm being difficult on purpose and he's trying to work this out. I asked him what working it out looks like to him, and he said me agreeing to get my mom alternative care. I told him that's not happening and we're just going in circles. He said then what's the point of trying? I asked him if he even wants to try or if he just wants me to give in. He said he wants me to be realistic about what's sustainable. I said caring for my mother for a few more weeks is absolutely sustainable. He got quiet and asked what I mean by weeks, and I told him about the doctor's update. Michael said, "Oh, so it's almost over anyway." Anyway. Like my mom's impending death is good news because then he can have his wife back. I asked him if that's really what he just said, and he tried to backtrack saying he just means maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel for us. I told him there's no us right now. That he walked out and changed his status to single and has been staying with his brother acting like a victim while I'm here watching my mother die. He said he's not acting like a victim, he is a victim of circumstance. I said the circumstance is you chose to leave instead of helping. Michael said he'll help once things get back to normal. I asked when exactly things will be back to normal, and he said once my mom passes and we can focus on rebuilding. I told him that's disgusting, he's literally waiting for my mother to die so he can have his comfortable life back. He said that's not what he means, and I'm twisting his words. I said his words are pretty clear. He wants me to either dump my dying mother in a facility or wait for her to die so he doesn't have to deal with any of it. He said I'm being unfair, and he's trying here. I asked him what he's trying exactly, because all I see is him complaining and avoiding and making demands. He said he's trying to save our marriage. I told him you don't save a marriage by abandoning your partner when they need you most. He said I abandoned him first by becoming someone he doesn't recognize. He said he'll come home when I'm ready to prioritize our marriage. I told him I am prioritizing our marriage by being honest that I cannot and will not abandon my mother. He said then I'm choosing and I need to live with that choice. I said the only person making choices here is him. Saturday morning, Ava asked me again when Daddy's coming home. I told her I don't know, sweetie, and she started crying. Said her friend Maisie's parents got divorced and now Maisie only sees her dad on weekends and she doesn't want that to happen to us. Carlos heard and started crying too. I sat on the floor with both my kids crying and tried to explain that sometimes grown-ups need space, but it doesn't mean they don't love each other or their kids. Ava asked if it's because of Grandma, and I said, no, baby, it has nothing to do with Grandma. But she's 8 and she's not stupid. She knows Grandma being sick has changed everything. My mom heard the kids crying and called from her room. I got the kids calmed down and settled with a movie and went to check on her. She was crying too. Said she's ruining my life and my marriage and maybe she should just go to hospice. I sat on her bed and held her hand and told her absolutely not. She's staying right here where she belongs. She said she doesn't want to be the reason I lose my husband. I told her Michael is the reason I'm losing my husband by being selfish and unsupportive. She said, but if she wasn't here, none of this would be happening. I said if Michael was a decent husband, he'd be helping me care for her, not running away. Sunday morning, I was doing laundry and my phone rang. Vincent, Michael's brother. I answered and he said he needs to talk to me about Michael. I said okay, and he said Michael's been staying with him for over a week now and he's a mess. That he's not sleeping well and he's clearly depressed and keeps talking about how his marriage is falling apart. I asked Vincent why he's calling me about this and he said, because someone needs to fix this situation before it's too late. I told him I'm not the one who needs to fix anything. Michael walked out. Vincent said Michael walked out because he felt pushed out. That from his perspective, I basically chose my mom over him. I laughed. Asked Vincent if he'd put his dying mother in a home so his wife wouldn't feel neglected. He said that's not the point, and I said that's exactly the point. Vincent said relationships require compromise and sometimes you have to make hard choices. I told him I've made my choice and it's to be there for my mother in her final weeks. He said, and what about after, what happens to my marriage then? I said, I don't know, maybe Michael will come back and we'll try to rebuild, or maybe he won't, and I'll know I married someone who couldn't be there when I needed him most. Vincent said I'm being very black and white about this. I said it feels pretty black and white when your husband gives you an ultimatum between him and your dying mother. He said Michael didn't mean it like an ultimatum, he just wanted me to understand how serious things are. I told him then Michael should have used his words instead of packing a suitcase and changing his Facebook status. The call ended badly with Vincent saying I'm being unreasonable and me telling him to stay out of my marriage. Now Vincent is probably telling Michael I'm being difficult, which is just perfect. Sunday night, after getting my mom settled and the kids to bed, I sat in my room and looked at Michael's Facebook. He'd posted a photo from some bar with Kelvin and Raymond captioned, finally feeling like myself again. Finally. Like being married to me and parenting our children was some prison he escaped from. The comments were full of his friends hyping him up. Someone said living your best life. Someone else said you deserve happiness, man. Kelvin commented again saying single life is treating you well, and Michael replied with a laughing emoji. I wanted to comment and tell everyone what's really happening. That he's not single, he's just avoiding his responsibilities. That his wife isn't keeping him prisoner, she's exhausted from caregiving while he does nothing. But I didn't, because what's the point? Monday morning this week, Michael texted saying he wants to see the kids. I said fine, come over after school. He said he wants to take them to the park, just them without me there. I asked why, and he said he wants to talk to them without me hovering. Update 2 coming, because what Michael said to our children was so out of line, and now his entire family is coming after me saying I'm poisoning the kids against him. Last update. Monday afternoon, Michael showed up at 3:30 p.m., right when I got back from picking up the kids from school. Ava and Carlos were so excited to see him, ran straight to his car yelling Daddy. I stood on the porch watching him hug them and load them into his car, and something in my gut told me this was a bad idea. But what was I supposed to do? Say no, you can't see your own kids. He said he'd have them back by dinner time and drove off. I went inside and checked on my mom who was having another rough day. Lots of pain and nausea. Spent the next 2 hours managing her medications and trying to keep her comfortable, while also making dinner and doing laundry and checking the clock every 10 minutes. Michael brought the kids back at 6:15 p.m. They came inside and both went straight to their rooms without saying hi to me or asking about dinner. That's weird because normally they're all over me after being out, wanting to tell me everything they did. I asked Michael what happened and he said nothing, they just had fun at the park. I asked if he said something to them and he said we just talked about stuff, nothing bad. Then he left before I could ask more questions. I went upstairs and knocked on Ava's door. She was lying on her bed staring at the ceiling. I asked if she had fun with Daddy and she said yeah, I guess. I sat on her bed and asked what they talked about. She got quiet and then said Daddy told her that Grandma being here is making Mommy too stressed and that's why he had to leave. Asked what else he said, and Ava said Daddy told her that sometimes people have to make hard choices, and Mommy chose to take care of Grandma instead of taking care of the family. I asked if Daddy said anything else, and Ava started crying. Said Daddy told her that Grandma is very sick and probably going to heaven soon, and after that happens, Mommy and Daddy might be able to fix things. That Daddy misses them so much, but he can't come home yet because the house is too sad and stressful right now. I was shaking. Went to Carlos's room and he was playing with his action figures. But when I asked about the park, he got this look on his face. Said Daddy told him that sometimes grown-ups fight because they want different things. That Mommy wants to take care of Grandma and Daddy wants the family to be happy again. Carlos asked me if I don't want the family to be happy and I wanted to cry. Told him of course I want us to be happy, but sometimes we have to take care of people who are sick. He said Daddy said there are people whose job it is to take care of sick people, and maybe that would be better. Michael told our children that I should put my mom in a facility. Used his time with them to plant seeds that I'm choosing wrong, making them think this is my fault. I called him immediately. He answered and I went off. Told him how dare he use our kids to manipulate me. He said he didn't manipulate anyone, he just had an honest conversation with them about what's happening. I said an honest conversation would be explaining that Daddy left because he couldn't handle supporting his wife, not telling them Mommy chose wrong. Michael said the kids deserve to know the truth. I asked what truth exactly, and he said that I'm prioritizing my mom over everyone else, including them. I told him that's a lie and he knows it. I'm taking care of my mom and them and everything else while he's out living his best single life. He said the kids can sense the tension and they deserve to understand why their dad isn't home. I said they deserve to understand that their dad abandoned them, not that their mom is doing something wrong. He said, I'm twisting this, and he was just being honest with them about the situation. I told him if he ever talks to our kids about our marriage problems again without discussing it with me first, I will lose it. He said they're his kids too and he can talk to them about whatever he wants. I said not when it's manipulation disguised as honesty. He said I'm being paranoid and he'd never manipulate his own children. We argued for 30 minutes. Him insisting he just wanted the kids to understand why he's not home. Me saying he's using them as weapons to pressure me. Finally, he said maybe the kids should understand that their mom is making choices that affect the whole family. I told him to go to hell and hung up. Tuesday morning, Cynthia showed up at my house at 8 a.m. Just showed up unannounced while I was trying to get the kids ready for school and help my mom with her morning routine. She knocked and I answered, and she walked right in saying we need to talk about the children. I told her now is not a good time, and she said it's never a good time with me anymore, but this is important. She sat down in my living room and said she heard from Michael that I yelled at him for talking to his own kids. I said I yelled at him for manipulating them. She said he wasn't manipulating anyone, he was being honest about a difficult situation. I asked if she thinks it's appropriate to tell an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old that their mom is choosing wrong. Cynthia said if the shoe fits, maybe I should examine my choices. I stared at her. This woman who I've known for 10 years, who's been to every holiday and birthday, who held my hand at the hospital when Ava was born, is sitting in my living room telling me I'm choosing wrong while my mother is dying upstairs. I told her she needs to leave. She said not until we discuss this properly, because her grandchildren are suffering. I said they're suffering because their father walked out, not because their grandmother is here. Cynthia said Michael walked out because he had no other choice. I backed him into a corner. I asked how exactly I backed him into a corner. By caring for my terminally ill mother. She said by refusing to compromise or consider his needs. I told her his needs don't outweigh my mother's life. She said my mother is dying anyway, and destroying my marriage won't change that. Anyway. Everyone keeps saying anyway, like my mom's death is inevitable, so nothing I do matters. I told Cynthia to get out of my house. She stood up and said I'm making a huge mistake and I'm going to lose everything because of pride. I said the only thing I'm losing is a husband who can't support me, and a mother-in-law who thinks I should abandon my dying mom. She left, but not before saying the kids told her they miss their dad and don't understand why mommy is being so difficult. I wanted to scream because, of course, that's what they said after Michael planted those ideas in their heads. Wednesday, my mom had to go to the hospital because her pain wasn't controlled with the home medications. We spent 6 hours in the ER getting her admitted and adjusted and comfortable. Called Chelsea to pick up the kids from school and stay with them. Didn't call Michael because why would I? He's made it clear he's not part of this anymore. Got home at 9 p.m. exhausted and found 3 missed calls from Michael and 2 from Vincent. Called Michael back, and he immediately started yelling about how I didn't tell him my mom was in the hospital, and he had to hear it from his brother who heard it from his mom. I said I was busy managing an emergency and didn't think to update my estranged husband. He said estranged is a strong word, and I said so is single. But that's what you changed your status to. He asked about my mom, and I told him she's stable and probably coming home in a day or two. He said he wants to bring the kids to visit her, and I said, absolutely not. I'm not exposing them to the hospital, and also, you don't get to play supportive family member now. Michael said the kids love their grandma and deserve to see her. I said they'll see her when she's home and comfortable, not in a hospital bed. He said I'm keeping them away from her because I'm angry at him. I told him I'm keeping them away because they're children and don't need to see their grandmother in the hospital. He said I'm being controlling and making all the decisions without consulting him. I asked when exactly he wanted to be consulted, when he was at the bar with his friends or when he was posting on Facebook about his freedom. He said that's not fair, and I said neither is walking out on your family and then demanding to be included in decisions. Thursday, my mom came home from the hospital. Her doctor pulled me aside and said, we're really looking at days to maybe 2 weeks now. Days. I had to sit in that parking lot for 10 minutes just breathing before I could drive her home. Got her settled and comfortable, and the hospice nurse came by to set up more equipment and medications. My mom looked at me while the nurse was there and said she's sorry for all this. I told her to stop apologizing, she has nothing to be sorry for. She said she's sorry Michael left and sorry the kids are confused and sorry I'm so tired all the time. I sat on her bed and held her hand and told her she's the best mom I could have asked for, and I'm grateful for every extra day I get with her. She said she's ready to go whenever it's time, and she just wants to make sure I'm going to be okay. I lied and said I'll be fine. Friday morning, Ava had a meltdown before school. Wouldn't get dressed, wouldn't eat breakfast, just sat on the floor crying. I asked what's wrong, and she said she doesn't want grandma to die and she doesn't want daddy to leave forever. Carlos heard and started crying too. I ended up sitting on the floor with both of them, just holding them while they cried. Called them in sick to school and let them spend the morning watching movies. My mom heard the commotion and asked if the kids are okay. I told her they're processing everything and they'll be fine. She said maybe Michael is right about the kids being affected. I told her Michael doesn't get an opinion right now. Friday afternoon, Michael showed up without calling first, just rang the doorbell, and when I answered, he pushed past me saying he's here to see his kids. I told him he can't just show up whenever he wants, and he said this is still his house too, he's on the mortgage. We stood in the hallway arguing, and Ava came down the stairs asking what's happening. Michael immediately went into dad mode, all smiles and hugs, asking if she's okay. She told him she stayed homesick, and he looked at me accusingly like I didn't tell him on purpose. Michael sat with the kids for an hour, and I tried to give them space, but I could hear him, telling them how much he misses them, how he wants to come home so badly, but grown-up stuff is complicated, how he hopes things will be better soon, making promises he might not keep, and giving them hope that's maybe false. After he left, Ava asked me if daddy's coming home soon. I said, I don't know, sweetie, and she said, but daddy said he wants to. I told her wanting something, and it actually happening, are different things. She asked if I want daddy to come home, and I didn't know how to answer. Do I want Michael to come home? The man who walked out on me when I needed him most? The man who gave me an ultimatum between him and my dying mother? The man who's been out living his best life while I'm here drowning? I told Ava I want daddy to be happy and I want us all to be okay, and that's the truth right now. Saturday morning, my phone started blowing up. Texts from numbers I don't even have saved. Looked at Facebook and Michael had posted a long status about how hard it is to be separated from your kids when you're just trying to do what's best for everyone. About how sometimes marriage requires tough love and space, and hopefully his wife will understand eventually. The comments were full of people supporting him. His friends saying, hang in there, brother. His co-workers saying, you're doing great. Even some mutual friends commenting about how hard separation is. And I'm sitting here with our kids and my dying mother looking like the villain who pushed him away. I wanted to comment and tell the truth, but what's the point? Michael has already painted himself as the victim who had no choice but to leave. Anything I say will make me look bitter and defensive. My mom passed away early Sunday morning, peacefully in her sleep with me holding her hand. I called Chelsea and she came right over. Called Michael and left a voicemail saying my mom is gone and I need him to take the kids for a few days while I handle arrangements. He showed up 2 hours later, and the first thing he said was, I'm so sorry. And I told him he doesn't get to be sorry he wasn't here. He tried to hug me, and I stepped back. He said we can put all our issues aside for now, and I said there's nothing to put aside, you made your choice weeks ago. Michael took the kids and I spent Sunday planning my mother's funeral alone. Monday morning, Cynthia called saying she wants to help with arrangements, and I told her thank you, but no. She said Michael told her I'm pushing everyone away and she's worried about me. I said I'm not pushing anyone away, I'm just handling things myself like I've been doing for months. The funeral is Wednesday. Michael texted saying he and the kids will be there obviously, and he hopes we can be civil. I said I'll be civil for the kids and that's it. He said after the funeral we need to have a serious talk about our future. I said our future was decided when he walked out. He called and said that's not fair, we haven't even tried counseling or really working on things. I asked when exactly we were supposed to try counseling, when I was caring for my dying mother or planning her funeral. He said now that my mom has passed, maybe we can focus on US. I told him I don't want to focus on us right now, I just want to bury my mother in peace. Michael said he understands I'm grieving, but we can't keep avoiding this forever. I said I'm not avoiding anything, I just have bigger priorities right now. He said, and that's always the problem, isn't it? I always have bigger priorities than him. I hung up. I'm sitting here Tuesday night, the day before I bury my mother, and my husband is texting me about needing to discuss our marriage. My kids are at his brother's place confused about everything. My house feels empty without my mom. And Michael wants to talk about US like I have anything left to give to a relationship with someone who abandoned me when I needed him most. I don't know if I want him to come back. I don't know if I can forgive him for leaving. I don't know if loving someone is enough when they've shown you they won't be there when things get hard. All I know is I'm burying my mom tomorrow and somehow I have to figure out what comes next. Final, small update. The funeral was 3 weeks ago and I'm writing this because people keep asking what happened with Michael. At the funeral, Michael sat next to me with the kids between us. He kept trying to hold my hand during the service and I kept pulling away. Afterwards, he cornered me at the reception at Chelsea's house and said now that everything's settled, we need to talk about moving forward together. I looked at this man who spent the last month of my mother's life complaining about being lonely while I watched her die, who gave me an ultimatum and walked out, who changed his status to single and went out partying while I planned a funeral. And I told him there is no moving forward together. He said we can't make permanent decisions while I'm grieving. And I said I'm not making decisions while grieving. I'm making decisions based on who he showed me he is. He tried to say he was just struggling and didn't handle things well, but he loves me and wants to fix this. I asked him where that love was when I needed him most. Michael said he's sorry and he was selfish and he wants to come home and support me now. I told him it's too late for now, that I needed him then, and he chose to leave. He said everyone makes mistakes and marriages are about forgiveness. I said some mistakes are too big to forgive. He started crying right there at my mother's funeral reception, saying he can't lose his family over this. I told him he already lost it when he packed that suitcase. He asked what about the kids, and I said we'll figure out custody, but he's not moving back into my house. Last week, Michael came by to pick up more of his stuff and tried again. Said he's been in therapy and realizing how wrong he was. That he wants to prove he can be better. I asked him if his therapist knows he manipulated our children and used them as weapons against me. He said that wasn't manipulation, it was just trying to help them understand. I told him to take his stuff and go. He said I'm being cold and unforgiving and this isn't the woman he married. I said the woman he married died a little bit every day for 3 months while he complained about being neglected. He said that's not fair, and I said neither was any of this. Michael's still staying at Vincent's. We're figuring out a custody schedule through lawyers now because every conversation turns into him trying to convince me to give him another chance. Cynthia keeps texting saying I'm being too harsh and everyone deserves forgiveness. I blocked her number last week. The kids are adjusting. They miss their dad, but they're not crying every night anymore. Ava asked me if daddy's ever coming back home, and I told her probably not, but daddy still loves her and Carlos very much. She said she understands because sometimes grown-ups can't fix what's broken. My house feels different without my mom, but also peaceful in a way it hasn't been in months. No more fighting, no more Michael sulking in the guest room. Just me and my kids figuring out our new normal. Shout out to everyone who said Michael would expect to waltz back in once my mom passed. You were right. To everyone who said I deserve better than someone who abandons me during crisis. Thank you. To the person who said his true character showed when things got hard. Absolutely correct. I'm 34 years old with 2 kids and a marriage that's ending because my husband couldn't handle me caring for my dying mother. And somehow I'm okay with that. Because I know I did the right thing. I was there when my mom needed me. I didn't abandon her to save a marriage with someone who would ask me to. Michael can have his freedom and his victim narrative. I have my self-respect and my kids and the knowledge that I showed up when it mattered most.